welcome all of our virtual folks. So welcome to our meeting. And so Missy McClain, yay. This is the first time that we've been able to have an in-person meeting in 2 years for CARE Team Roundtable. So I'm just so excited. And to have Missy McClain come back and hang with us is just the caps me out. So Missy McClain works at Akron Children's Hospital, and I think as long as I've been in this role, you and I have worked together on projects on and off. So very excited. I'd like to just take a moment, and if you would introduce yourselves, we'll start with Carla. Just if we could have your name and maybe what building you're at or what you do, and that will give Missy an idea of who's in our audience here. And so we'll go starting with Carla.
Yep, good morning, everyone. I'm Carla Vidlac. I work here at the ESC.
I'm Chrissy Benison. I work at Sandy Valley Local, the FSS.
Oh, I'm Stephanie Wood. I'm the FSS at Alliance Middle and High School.
I am Holly. I am the FSS at Marlington Elementaries.
I'm Rachel Shanauer. I'm FSS at Marlington Middle and High School.
I'm Kathy Arrows. I'm FSS at Jackson Local.
I'm Angie Matriansky. I'm the FSS at Carrollton Middle School and High School.
Jessica Kogar, I'm the school counselor at Northwest Middle.
Angie King, the family specialist or FSS at Northwest.
I'm Chrissy Mudd. I'm the assistant care team director.
Valerie Pack, consultant at SSP9, and I do the training for CBIS for the region.
And I'm Patty Fetzer, Director of Prevention here at the ESC.
Hi, I'm Greg Wright, and I'm a music teacher at Piper Intermediate School of Perry and a part-time mental health counselor. And I had Cape Port for science in the 80s. Great.
He's got a good sense of humor, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm getting my certificate.
Dr. D. Perry Local, District Mental Health and Wellness, Stark County ESC Trauma and Resiliency Collaboration.
And I'm Lynette Blossman, Assistant Care Team Director.
Michaela Deering, Sandy Valley Elementary Counselor.
Jen Weigel, Sandy Valley Middle School counselor.
Awesome. So this is our audience that we have here. I'll monitor the chat room for those of you that are on virtually. So we'll monitor the chat room for you. And any questions that come up, I'll make sure that I share with you, Missy. But I would like to welcome Missy McClain from Akron Children's Hospital. Thanks for taking with us.
Thank you, Kay. I'm so glad to meet all of you. Oh, I didn't get to meet you.
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm from Massland.
Hi, Amy. Hi. Great. It's so good to meet some of you. So good to see some of you who I already know. I am so excited to be here with you guys today. And hello to those of you. I'm like speaking out, like it's like Field of Dreams to those in the web. That was a weird way to say that. So I'm excited to be here with you guys today, talking more about the ways that we can connect with kids, and excited to be here with the care teams as well. You have to know that there's something really special about Stark County, and just as Kay said, that we've worked together for many years. I just celebrated 15 years at Akron Children's Hospital, and thank you. Just in December, I celebrated 15 years, and this job has given me this weird little opportunity to travel all over the state and work with schools and train on things like trauma and social emotional learning and all of that, et cetera. And there's something special about Stark County because you guys have these wonderful leaders who have created these really strong support systems for kids in schools. This is the only county that has these really strong care teams. And so when I'm looking at other counties and talking with them about ways that they can create better spaces for kids, I almost always talk about the work that you guys do here in this county as a model for what can be done in other counties. So I hope you realize what a really incredible and pioneering adventure that you guys are a part of, because this county really is awesome, and I love working with it, and I love working with all you folks. You guys are so great, and that partnership really is key here, and I love that. So I'm excited to be here again, particularly in person, And I am available to you for questions or for any types of support that you might need. My contact information is up here. You can take a picture of this slide. You can take a picture of anything. That's fine by me. This is my email address is the best way to get a hold of me. I always draw attention to my Pinterest account if you're a Pinteresty person. That is my work Pinterest. I have over 4,800 social and emotional school-based strategies. So if anyone on your care team or anyone in your building is looking for social and emotional curriculum or supports, these are things that you can offer. I, of course, didn't make them. I just am on Pinterest, you know, like pinning stuff. But there's a lot on there, and so you can follow me there. And then I also want to draw your attention to my LiveBinder resource. So my LiveBinder, first off, has a copy of every single one of the PowerPoint slides you're going to see today, as well as just pretty much every PowerPoint like I've ever made in my life is on there too. And also, I mean, I don't think like my 10th grade PowerPoints are on there, but lots of information for you, direct links to websites, academic research, strategies, all free for you to use for forever. I will never change this link. I will never change the access key. I just looked yesterday. I have now had over 20,000 views on my LiveBinder. Isn't that cool? So, I mean, that might just be me looking at it 20,000 times. But I hope to think that maybe there are 20,000 people out there checking it out. But like I said, it will always be free for you. I will not change those links, but I do frequently add new things to this LiveBinder. As topical things come up, I'll add new research or I'll add new resources or websites that you can go on to. Pretty much every website that I can think of is on there. I know that, you know, PBIS World is linked on there. There's actually quite a few selections under my PBIS tabs. So there's things that may not even be related to what I do, but are accessible through my LiveBinder. My Google's being weird. I don't know why. When I open up and say, can, you know, everyone can see this and view, you know, when I share, yes, some things are still sticky. And they're saying you need to ask for permission. If that comes up, just hit ask for permission. I'll give you permission. I don't get that many emails, okay? I'll give you permission if it comes up a little funky for you. All right, this is my family. My husband and I are, we've been together 18 years, and he's taking me on a surprise vacation in a week and a half. I'm very excited. I'm hoping for like the Florida Keys, bracing myself for Gatorland. My daughter Bree is in the 5th grade. She just turned 11, and my son Cameron is in the 3rd grade, and he just turned 9. So that's who I am. And like I said, I'm here to talk to you guys about relationships. So how many of you guys, first off, how many of you have ever, or let's say it this way, who has not seen me speak before? Okay, a couple of us. Okay, so who remembers anything about the 40 developmental assets? Do you guys remember us talking about the 40 developmental assets? And the Search Institute said, hey, these 40 things are what kids need to survive and thrive. And they included things like, you know, family involvement at home, family involvement in schooling, boundaries and expectations, involvement in community service and community activities, and, you know, achievement motivation and reading for pleasure and integrity and honesty and personal power and self-esteem, right? These 40 things that this research started in the early 1990s found. Right, that, hey, these are the 40 things that kids need. If you don't remember that, I have all the information and PowerPoint slides on the LiveBinder, right? Long story short, they said, okay, we found over many, many years and millions of children that these are the 40 things that kids need to succeed and thrive in this world. And then they kind of came to a spot in their research where they were like, ugh, okay. So they need these 40 things, and now we also know that the more they have, the better off they're gonna be. And we also know that way too many kids don't have enough. So now what? Right? What do we do to help build these things? It's nice to know that this is what they need, but now what? Right? And so they started first by talking about building resilience, right? How do we build resilience for kids? How do we look at the natural human resiliencies like positive humor in times of crisis, things like positive bone adaptive coping mechanisms, right? They talked about conflict resolution and, all of this kind of personal building things. And then they said, okay, so if we look at resilience as one kind of pillar of what we can do, what else can we do? Well, then they moved into what's called SPARK research. And this is really kind of passion project research, right? How we can help kids through their individual passions become more connected and more involved. So if a child's into, the Cleveland Cavaliers, how can we use that as an opportunity to help them become more engaged, connected, and help them get their goals met at school, right? So now that was the second pillar. They had this resiliency building as the first pillar, and then SPARK building is the second pillar. And now they've moved on to a whole new set of research called developmental relationships. Because they said, okay, so, sorry.
Let me check and I'll make sure everybody.
Just so you know, at home, there's a weird noise in here. Okay, we're good. Like I said, they started on this third pillar of research on developmental relationships because they said, okay, so we're using resilience and SPARKs to build relationships with kids, but what kind of relationship should we build, right? And what type of depth should we go into in the relationships that we have with kiddos? And that's when they started building this developmental relationship work. That is what we're going to be talking about today. The developmental relationships piece. Now, I will say, this is just their current research. 3 years from now, there might be a fourth pillar, right? 5 years from now, there might be a fifth pillar, right? They're just continuing to grow on this research on how we do better in regard to building relationships and building these developmental assets for young people. So this is just the newest version of what they're talking about. So, when we're talking about developmental relationships, this is not just any old relationship. This is a relationship that takes it the next step further. They have three main kind of components to this. First one being we're just getting to know each other. It is a reciprocal experience, right? So me and this student, we're getting to know each other. Not just about me getting to know him, but him getting to know me as well. That's kind of that first spot. Then that second spot is also reciprocal. Now that we're getting to know each other, how are we helping each other build upon our current strengths and abilities, right? How are we challenging growth in each other? How are we building these skill sets so that we can become the best possible people we can be? And then moving even further, how can we help each other stay more connected with our community? Whether that community be our local community, so just the other kids in our classroom, or maybe the other students and teachers in our school building, more connected with the district as a whole, or even more connected with the community at large, right? And so it's this gradual growth of, hey, we're just getting to know each other and I like the Cavs too. So wait, how can we help each other grow? And now, how can we be connected in this relationship to others? So the one thing about this is that it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. I think sometimes when we're working in schools, we want, that lesson plan. That's like, okay, here's how you build relationships with kids. I mean, that would be awesome, but that's just not how we as humans work. We actually have lots of different types of relationships with people all over, right? You have a different kind of relationship with your best friend than you do with your favorite coworker, your partner at home, the kids you work with, your own children, your neighbors, right? Those relationships are all different. Even if you would say, my relationship with my partner is very important to me and very close. My relationship to my best friend is very important to me and very close. But those relationships are quite different, right? So relationships can be a lot of different things. It's not going to be a one-size-fits-all when it comes to our students. And the thing about this is that when you're looking at a really in-depth developmental relationship, it can be a little overwhelming because a lot of teachers, it's like, well, I've got 30 kids in my classroom, or I have 175 kids who kind of filter through my classroom throughout the day. I couldn't possibly have this in-depth of a relationship with every single one of them. That's not what this is asking. It's not asking you to have this relationship with every child you come in contact with. But the thing is that every child who walks into the school building is entitled to at least one of these relationships. So how do we allocate our resources, our human resources appropriately so that every child is getting one of these relationships somewhere? And I do this, some of you may have participated in this with me or seen me do this before, but I call it a roster activity. That's not what it's called, and I think other people have way more clever ideas of what to call it. But I have staff members in a school building write down the 3 kids that they have the closest relationship with, right? Doesn't matter if they're in their class right now, or if they are, maybe I'm their coach, right? 3 kids that I am most connected with. And then in a meeting, I bring the entire school roster and stickers. And each person gets 3 stickers that represent those 3 children that they wrote down. And they go and they put the sticker next to that child's name. And when you do this activity, you actually find something pretty incredible. Because when we talk about relationships, especially in schools, sometimes this can be a contentious conversation. Because administrators or strangers like me come in and say, hey, you need to build relationships with kids. And everyone in the building is saying, we are building relationships with kids. And it's, you need to build relationships. We are building relationships. And it becomes this kind of uncomfortable conversation. The problem is that we're both right. We are making great relationships, but we need to make great relationships. And when you do this sticker activity, what reveals or what becomes apparent, I was like, what reveals from that, that's a weird way to say that, is that many children have many stickers. We don't realize that we are building really great relationships with the same kids. And I'm a 4th grade teacher, and I have no idea that the kindergarten teacher is still really close with that kid too. I just don't even see it, right? So what happens is on this roster, you have these kids that have many, many stickers, and then you have many, many more children who have 0 stickers. And it's weird how this kind of splits off, because I find that the kids at the very top of the spectrum, highest achieving academically, highest achieving socially, right, athletically, those kids tend to have a lot of stickers. And then our kids at the very bottom also tend to have a lot of stickers, right? Because those kids have really great relationships with counselors and interventionists and administrators. A lot of times it's the kids in the middle that are getting left out, showing up every day, BC, average, right, doing what I'm doing, walk right out. Those are the kids that start to become invisible because nobody's really putting any energy there. Not because it's out of malice or on purpose, but because we just don't know that it needs to be there. And so when we start looking at this, we start recognizing too that we build relationships with kids who are organically good at building relationships. Right? We all know those kids that was like, well, they're not quite good at building relationships, right? And then there's the kids who, wherever they are on the spectrum, if they're really good at building relationships, they've got really good social skills, those kids have lots of connections. And so we depend a lot on the organic nature of building relationships. That's how we've made our best friends. That's how we met our partners. It's how we, connect with our closest coworkers. It's organic what happens, right? But in this work, we need to be more purposeful. And so now I can look at this roster and I can say, okay, well, these are my 3 kids that I have great relationships with. Doesn't mean that needs to end, right? We can have great relationships with them, but now I'm going to be targeted in who I'm going to look to build this developmental relationship with. Maybe it's these 3 kids. It doesn't have to be 175 kids, because we can allocate our human resources to represent 3, 4, 5 kids that we're gonna target over a full year, right? So when we're looking at a developmental relationship, like I said, it's that getting to know each other, growth, and connection. They actually have 5 key ways that we do this. And so for the rest of our time talking about developmental relationships, I actually want to go through these 5 components and go into detail about ways that we're already doing this work. Because more often than not, we are already doing it. Okay, so for those of you at home and those of you here, I want you to get out some paper. I want you to be ready to write some things down. This is going to be pretty interactive for the rest of the time. So please do that. Do we have any questions yet? Okay. So, like I said, there's these 5 key components, right? 5 ways that we build and strengthen this relationship over time. They start with express care, sharing power, challenging growth, providing support, and expanding possibilities. And what we are going to do is we're going to go through each and every one of these 5, and like I said, write down what we're already doing. So, let's go ahead and start with express care, just so that we can see how we're going to play this out. So when we're looking at expressing care, this is about showing warmth, it's about being dependable, it's about listening, it's about being welcoming, and just that very initial way that we connect with kids. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a few minutes and I want you to write down all of the things that you can think of in your school building that you think would help a child feel this. So you might think of, when kids are coming in off the bus, there's always, like a handful of teachers right there at the door saying good morning, saying their names, right? Welcome, we're so excited to see you. That would be something that we are already doing that would help kids feel like they're being cared about. That make sense? So write down as many things as you can think of. I'm going to give you a few minutes to go ahead and think about this, what we're already doing, whether it be in clinics or in hallways, cafeterias, or classrooms, or in the office. All right, let's come back and let's start sharing out. So like I said, for those of you who are on the Zoom or on the Google Meet, if you want to share out, I'd love for you to raise your hand and we'll unmute you, or you can just write what some of your thoughts are in the chat as well. And I'd like to get some ideas in here as well. And feel free to cheat off each other. If someone says something, you're like, oh yeah, we do that too, write it down, right? That's the goal, is to kind of get a good running list of things that we're already doing. So what do we got? Yeah.
I have one kiddo who's homeless and she tries to slink through the halls without, and I noticed that she always was picking apple juice out of my little stores. So I have started stocking apple juice for her, and I know she's coming in all the time, and we're having conversations now.
Good.
When she comes for her juice.
Good. Stocking extra apple juice because she likes it, just to start engaging in that conversation. I actually hear a lot of that as a suggestion, right? Well, her favorite snack is this, so I keep it in my drawer, right? Good. That's a definite way to show that we care. Good. What else? Yes.
I have 2 online. So from Kim Moore, who's at FSS at Alliance, she says, greeting at the door. Oh, sorry, I have 2 minutes. Greeting at the door, calling kiddos by their names, daily words of encouragement to the preschoolers, positive reinforcement with prizes. And then Addie, FSS at Watson Elementary, inquire about them and ask questions. Kim, FSS at Perry High School, we have an advisory every Tuesday where each teacher has a lesson plan, play games, and connect with the students. And then Danita, district level administrator at Perry, providing encouragement when something is difficult or hard.
Good.
So, thank you to
Good. Thank you guys online. What else we got in here? Yeah.
Artwork hanging in the halls.
Good.
Yeah, I walked past and one of the kindergarten teachers had literally taken the kids' photos, and they were that big in the center of, I don't know, something. But anyway, they are all the way down the hall.
Yeah.
I just think that would be cool for a kid to see that.
Yeah, definitely when artwork is featured or when hard work is featured. There was a high school teacher that I met, and she had, it was high school, which I just thought was awesome that she did this at the high school level. And she had a whole bulletin board, and she had it designed, and it said Mrs. Smith's refrigerator. And she had it designed like a little refrigerator. And she made push pins out of the ABC magnets. you know? And so then she would feature kids' hard work up on her refrigerator at the high school level. And it was wonderful, definitely a way that we show care.
Just reconfirming that, my son is a senior, and he's had a struggle this year, but he got an award for best student of the month in business, and I'll tell you what, that meant the world to him.
Makes all the difference.
children.
Yeah, good, yeah.
One of our elementary schools, their FSS is a photographer, and so he takes pictures of the students, then blows them up, and so they're throughout the hallways are pictures of the students.
Good, like
Yeah.
giant pictures, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's
Like
great. What else? Yeah.
I've been sitting down in the hallways with the kids that I know have been removed from class for one reason or another, so I just sit down on the floor next to them and we just have a little chat. And sometimes I'm like, you need a snack?
Yeah.
That help you turn your behavior around, and I hope it does.
Yeah, just sitting with them, chatting with them, right? Just talking about everyday stuff. Yeah.
We have some school-wide things that we do. We have, it's called a flex period.
Yeah.
Every day we spend 20 minutes. It's smaller groups and all the teachers kind of check in with the kiddos. It's time for missing work or if you miss school to check in and see what you've missed, but it's not necessarily academically based. Each day is a different subject.
Yeah.
So for example, today is Tuesday?
Yes, it is.
I'm like, I had to think for a second. So today would be like a language arts day.
Sure.
And if you don't need that extra help from the language arts teachers, it's a study hall for you. But it gives a chance, I didn't quite understand this lesson, I need to check in with you. So we have that. Our teachers, this is at a middle school level. Our teachers, like our science teacher has 170 kids that she teaches science to, but she'll make phone calls home positive, not always negative.
Yeah.
At the middle school level, and I know she sends, she's not the only one, but they send notes home to parents, hey, so-and-so had an amazing
Yes.
unit on whatever, tectonic plates was the other last week. So they do that. We have a program called Caught in the Act, where we really work on the positivity and recognizing when kids do the right thing, even when no one is around. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
All things that show care. So good.
And they get announced on Friday,
Oh, yeah, over
Our
the
Caught in the Act winners for this week, and then they pick two per grade usually. And they come down and they get a little candy bar. Everybody picks sour Skittles, but they can have Reese's if they want.
Good, thank you so much. We got more
From our online folks, Tabitha, listening to what they have to say, even if it is a short comment or phrase. Danita, celebrating birthdays.
Ooh, yeah.
And Katie, plays basketball with her students.
Plays basketball with her students. Good, right? And I'm even thinking of saying basketball. Lots of teachers and administrators who go to the athletic events of their students, right? That expresses care. Who ask about an event that was maybe out of town. I was just working with a kid who swims with my kid is like some sort of nationally ranked fisherman, right? And I don't know why that was my move for fishermen, but that's an outside of school activity, right? And they were talking about how does the school acknowledge this really incredible thing that this kid is doing outside of school, right? That's a way that we encourage that relationship and express care. You said playing basketball also reminded me of, I can't remember, it's a Stark County school where he plays video games with the kids.
I
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Runs our gaming club. He's actually a mental health counselor.
Okay, yeah, something like that, right? Where we're playing games, playing board games, playing video games, right? Connecting with kids in ways that they like to connect. Awesome, you guys. You guys are totally getting what this activity is, right? All the ways that we're already doing this work, right? Because we already are. So, we're gonna move past this, but we're coming back to it. So don't throw this in the garbage can, okay? We're coming back to this. So, but I wanna move on to the next one and give us a couple minutes on this one as well. Now that you guys know what we're kind of looking for, it hopefully might be a little bit easier to come up with our list. So the next category, beyond expressing care, is beginning to share power, right? How are we giving kids leadership opportunities? How are we giving kids things like voice and vote? How are we giving them opportunities to be involved in decisions, particularly decisions that affect them personally, right? So let's think about all of the different ways that we're already doing this work. Go ahead and write them down. I'll give you a couple minutes here too. All right, so let's come back together on sharing power. So what ways are you guys already providing student leadership, collaboration, ways that we are helping them partake in some of the decisions that are important to them? What are we already doing? Yes?
I write 504 plans for the building, so I call the kids down and ask their opinion on what they need and what they don't need.
That's awesome, right? Yeah, including students in that 504 planning, awesome. What else are we doing? What are teachers doing? What are administrators doing? Yes?
Self-led conferences, scientists for a day, I mean, so many things.
Great, scientists for a day, I like that. There was another school that I worked with where one of the, they had, this was in Plain Local, I think, where they have that big store that they use, yeah, and they have the relationship building rewards, and one of them was like principal for a day, and she said that one's like really popular, right? But giving that leadership opportunity, and also think about the connections that get made during that leadership. Remember, this is all about building those really strong relationships. Good, what else are we doing? Oh yeah, okay, we got stuff online.
Online, Suzanne, we are starting a new peer mentoring program at the high school level next year. Jennifer Holloway, we have 8th graders as leaders for the new incoming 6th graders at the start of the year.
Awesome.
Pam Postenbaugh, many staff members ask, how can I help you with this, instead of, why don't you remember this information?
Oh, so good. Just even switching from the way that we say things and how empowering it can be, just to switch that language a little bit. Awesome, great examples online, thank you. And oh goodness, what was the second one you said?
The second one was they have 8th graders
Yes.
as leaders for incoming 6th graders.
Yes, I see this a lot too, right? Where we're using, you know, like my daughter is in 5th grade this year, and it's like, you know, all the rage among the 5th graders that they get to be like the leaders for the kindergartners, like for all the assemblies and for all the things like that, that they have the, like, their kindergartner that they're in charge of, right? That's a big deal. And 8th graders supporting and orienting 6th graders, right? We do this at the high school level too, when we have those student ambassadors that, that create space for leadership. Awesome. What else are we doing? Yeah.
We have student council.
Yes.
You think of choosing your own sport.
Yes.
Taking initiative there, team captains. Let's see here. They do announcements in the morning. Our kids record those.
Awesome.
And then choosing your own career paths, even like IEPs, I would think, because you're forming it around that kid, but they have goals.
Yes.
And then I have personally a few incentive programs in the mornings that I do with kids that, whether it's hygiene or just making it to school attendance, some of them it's eating enough, but we just reward them, like they make goals with us, then they're in charge of whether they achieve them or not.
Yeah, making their own goals, whether they're achieving them or not. I love that. I think about that too. A lot of us have like tier 2 supports in our spaces where we're doing check-ins and check-outs. I love it when I see schools that are having students create what those goals are going to be in that check-in and check-out. And then also they're the ones who decide if they met that goal or not. They're the ones who say, oh, I don't know if I met that or not today, right? That is that sharing of leadership, even when it comes to that tier 2 intervention. Excellent. Anybody else online got anything?
Yes, Amy Palfy, the Genesis Project, this is in Fearless, Rising Scholars, Youth Leadership Academy, they have Team Falcon, Falcon Volunteers, Student Council, 7th graders giving advice to our 6th graders with a small treat. Danita Berry, providing student choice, giving opportunities to help the teacher lead the group. Rachel Grader, we run a 3rd grade Fierce Females program. The girls have input on who comes to speak to them from the community and also creates their own service project. third graders.
Awesome.
Third grade girls.
I love thinking of fierce third graders. That
Fierce,
makes me
yes,
happy.
fierce females.
Yes, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Good, yeah.
And there's models out there as we think about the mental health awareness. They've got that sources of strength model. It's all about how you're actually empowering the students to give campaign and guidance around resiliency. And, you know, there's opportunities out there and models out there that they will do the work. The peers will do the work, get the information, get it out to their peers in the way they'll receive it.
I'm telling you, peer-facilitated prevention is super fun. I did that for years with my Respect program. I did sexual assault prevention and relationship building, and it was all high school kids that were going into middle schools and doing, you know, lessons on building healthy friendships and relationships. It's so great when you can do peer-facilitated work. It's awesome. I'm even thinking really small things that I bet pretty much every teacher does in your elementary schools, classroom jobs. That is a leadership opportunity. That's a sharing of power. Things like, let's vote on what movie we're gonna watch on Friday, right? Those kinds of things are ways that we can make small opportunities for sharing power. Awesome, thank you guys so much for sharing. Again, keep this, we're gonna be coming back through all of these. Don't throw it in the garbage yet.
And then just one more online. From Tracy Lewis, we have guys with ties and girls with pearls at the third grade level that help with leadership and building relationships and confidence.
Yes, and I know another elementary school, they are K through 4, I think, and they have the guys with ties, which I think is like adorable. Girls with pearls, I hadn't heard that one yet, I love that. Okay, and their guys with ties actually has not a staff member in charge of that, but a community member who comes in and does that. Yeah.
I don't want to toot my own horn. I helped create Guys with Ties.
Yes.
And we are in Hawaii, we're in Las Vegas, we're in Kentucky, we have all around. And our umbrella company, Beyond the Game, they just kind of took us under. He just moved down to Ohio State as a coach, and he has all through Dublin and all those down there. So I can't tell you how many schools it's in now, so we're very excited.
Hey, toot. All right.
Yes.
Don't be shy to toot your own horn when you've got great things going. All right, our third of 5 components is challenging growth. So this is looking at how we are reflecting on failures, how we are helping kids through stretching and scaffolding, how are we helping them push, how are we setting appropriate expectations for them. That's what we're looking at. So what are we already doing that would be meeting this for students? All right, let's come together. What are we doing already that does this, that meets this? Yes?
I don't know if this really counts or not. It might be more under a bribe kind of thing, but.
The bribe category?
Yeah, the bribe category. I have a couple students at the high school level that will just come into my office and just talk. They don't necessarily have to have any issues or anything, but, so now they've started to email me, which is fine, you know, I encourage them to do that, and the one student wanted me to get her Grubhub ordered into the school, and I'm like, you know, I really can't do that, but I went and talked to the assistant principal. She's doing really poorly the student is doing really poorly in geometry, and he's like, email her back and tell her if she gets that geometry grade up, we'll order Grubhub, or whatever it was. I don't know, but I don't know if that was really, I don't know if that really falls under this, because I'm always trying to challenge her, but
Sure.
I wasn't reaching her. You know
That's
what I mean?
great. That's a perfect example of an incentive, right? It's a lighthearted incentive, right? It's not like you get this or else.
Right.
I will not let you have lunch, right? That's a little more bribey. This is definitely more incentive, right? And it's not about whether or not we get the Grubhub or not. It's about those building of relationships. And because honestly, even if her grade in geometry doesn't go up, think about just those conversations about hey, if you do this, if it works out, right, we can get that Grubhub. What that conversation would be an opening for that child to come and get more help as well. Hey, I really want that Grubhub. You're gonna help me do this, help me study this while we sit here and just chat. And that relationship is building, right? And hopefully the grade does go up, and then you guys can celebrate eating Grubhub together,
And you
right?
have to give her credit. I mean, I would have never had the guts. Grubhub didn't exist when I was
Sure.
little, but I would never have had the guts to.
Yeah, say deliver a pizza for me.
Yeah, could you do this for me? So I like the fact that she's comfortable enough to.
Well, I think that she's got a lot of guts, but it's also evidence of the relationship that you're building with her, that trust has been built and that comfortability is there. And so give yourself a lot of credit on that too. All right, what else are we doing to challenge growth? Yes?
I think that just approaching the situation and saying, I believe you can do better.
Yeah.
I really believe you can do better. How can we make that happen?
Yeah.
How can we get that geometry grade out? What do you think you can do?
Yeah. How can I help you grow? And I believe that you can do this, right? I believe that you can reach those goals that you set for yourself. Good. Just that cheerleader mode, right, is important here. Yes?
Kind of like a post-incident conference or meeting. Our dean of students, bless his heart, he takes on a lot every day. And we don't have a lot of squirrely kids, but there are incidences every day. But just that post-conference, I hear him all the time saying, okay, well, you need to accept that you were wrong, and how are we going to move on from this? How are we going to make sure this doesn't happen again? What can you do to prevent this from happening again? It's really empowering to hear, of course the kids are, I didn't do it, it's not my fault. To, yeah, you're right, I shouldn't have done that. It
How do we
really,
build that growth through those post-situation conversations? Excellent. How about online? We got some shared?
Yes, online. Kim Moore, our elementary school uses above-the-line cards. A kiddo gets star stickers for above-the-line behavior. When their card is full, they get a prize. The kids love it, and it reinforces growth, kindness, and good behavior.
Awesome.
Addie Kleinhens, at Watson, we do monthly Kids of Character Award for one student in each grade level.
Good.
Tabitha Bruner, understanding them when a situation is tough to deal with, but at the same time giving them words of encouragement and tools on how to get them through the moment. Rachel Grader, utilizing restorative circles and conversations with students.
Awesome.
Lucy Wyatt, students can go to TLC for tutoring when needed. Beth Whaley, discussing making better choices so you don't end up in AEP again. And Amy Healthy, prevention, life skills groups, lunch bunch with topics on social growth and consistent check-ins.
Awesome.
So thank you to our
Thank you, online.
folks.
All right, so, again, a really wonderful array of things that we're already doing in schools. I was debating internally whether to share this in this one or the next one, so I'm gonna share it in between. So the next one is provide support, and the example I was thinking of was in my children's school, right, in their homeschool, where they have, when students are setting goals or are trying to meet those goals, they've actually invited in their coaches. So there's been many times that the youth football coaches are coming into classrooms, the swim coaches are coming into classrooms as a way of, as community members, helping hold kids accountable differently, because a lot of students have very different relationships with their sports coaches than they do their teachers. And so if I see that my teacher and my coach are on the same page, right, that all of a sudden helps me challenge that growth. But like I said, I wasn't sure if that would fit in the last one or more with provide support. But that's why I shared it in the middle. So our next one, oh yeah.
Oh, and we have a question, and let me see if I can find, let me just see here where it's at. From Rachel Grader. So I'm going to see if I can find her real quick, and I'll later. I think it's cool if they have. Yeah. Okay. Rachel Grader, will you unmute and ask the question that you put in the chat to Missy, please?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, Missy. I was just thinking about on your last slide, the part that says holding me accountable. And this might be something you want to answer at the end or separately, but I feel like a lot of times in education, people believe that that phrase holding me accountable equates to discipline or punishment. And that sometimes creates this polarizing atmosphere within a building because you have two different train of thoughts when it comes to that.
Yes.
So I was just wondering if you could speak on that for a moment.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rachel. So anyone who knows me knows that I am a huge advocate for restorative practices and restorative justice. And so there are folks who would look at this idea of holding someone accountable and see punitive discipline, right? Are we giving them lunch detentions? Are we, holding them accountable in ways that might look like exclusionary discipline of some sort? That is not my philosophy on holding kids accountable, but I also know that that is a slow process of change in school buildings. So how we can move from this punitive space to a more restorative place where restorative's really looking at how do I hold myself accountable for my actions towards my community and what do I owe my community because of this. And so the ways that I find the easiest to kind of do this slow transition is to currently maintain the punitive discipline actions that you have while also incorporating a restorative consequence and a restorative accountability piece. So I'll give the example, just a home example for me. When my child threw a rock and broke a window at school, right? You're looking at, because my husband is still growing in restorative justice. And so what's going to be the punitive consequence? Making sure that that's a logical consequence for the child. So my son's punitive consequence from that was that he wasn't grounded from all video games, but he was grounded from Plants vs. Zombies because that one in particular has a lot of throwing of things and shooting of things with little guns, right? So that made logical sense. He didn't have to quit doing creative mode on Minecraft, right? But he did have to take a break on that video game. That was the punitive consequence. But then we went through the school to do a restorative consequence because the school wasn't going to give him any consequences because he was my kid. God love my school, I really do love it, they're wonderful. And so when I came to the principal with this, she said, you really want to do that? And I was like, I really do. And he actually spent 3 days with and he came up with this because he decided the person who was harmed most by him breaking the window was the custodian. So he spent 3 days of lunch with the custodian. We worked with the custodian so that he knew this wasn't like, gotta get clean toilets and that's how you're gonna, that it was actually about him building a relationship with Cameron. So that next time, maybe he's in the bathroom and all the kids wanna flush the paper towels down the toilet, that he's thinking, oh, well, what about Mr. Crisp? Because he has a relationship with that custodian now after those 3 lunch periods with him. So that would be an example of a punitive consequence coupled with a restorative consequence. So I find it easier that, okay, so we're gonna give a lunch detention, but what's he gonna do during that lunch detention that's going to hold him accountable for that? I hope that answered that question, Rachel, that we can actually do both for a while.
Yes, thank you so much.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
So now we're moving on to providing support. How are we helping kids feel empowered to take charge of the things that are important to them? How are we helping them navigate some of the difficult systems that they might be coming in contact with? How can we help them navigate and advocate? How are we advocating for them to stay connected with other types of community members and or folks in our buildings? And then setting appropriate expectations and limits for them. How are we already doing this work? I'm gonna give you a couple minutes. All right. What are we already doing to provide support for kiddos? Yes.
CARE Team?
Yes, we're already doing CARE Team, right? This is a regular meeting of the minds We are providing continuity of care. We're having regular conversations. We're connecting them, right, to other resources. Excellent. What else are we doing? Yes.
I don't know if this really counts, but this came out of CARE Team.
Yeah.
I think if you advocate and support the parent,
Yes.
you're automatically advocating and supporting for the student.
Absolutely. And this is particularly true of both advocacy as well as that navigation piece, right? If we're helping our parents navigate some of the systems, whether it be our school system or other systems that they might be involved in, we're giving them resources, we're giving them, contacts that people they can contact for help, right? Absolutely. When we're working with the family, we are helping the students. Excellent. What else?
Check out.
Yes.
I've had a few students where it meant a lot to them that they knew that one person understood behaving is really hard. And other kids, it's not.
Yeah.
And just to know that one person gets that does mean a lot.
Yeah, that regular check-in and check-out and saying, hey, you did a great job today, and I get it, this is hard sometimes, but then I'm upholding these boundaries, right? I'm trying to keep you on track because I care, right? I'm trying to provide you that regular support, whether it's check-in once a week or check-in twice a day, right? I'm trying to provide you that regular support. Good. What else? Yeah.
I spend a lot of time with kids who can't see past today, because that's how they are, so we talk a lot about in the future. You're gonna look back when you're my age and you're gonna say, oh, that really wasn't that big of a deal, but right now it is, and I understand that. But when you're a grown-up,
Yeah.
this isn't, to try to reframe things for them.
Yeah. Helping provide support by thinking about what this might look like a couple years from now. Good. Yes.
My district actually hired a full-time elementary counselor.
And it's me. Yay! Very good. Yeah, having the people there, providing that support, whether it be counselors, whether it be intervention specialists or family support specialists, right? Having those extra people there that really their whole job is kind of to be supportive, right? That's an excellent example. You had one too?
Oh, I was just talking about boundaries and teaching them about them and modeling them with them.
Good. Not just teaching, but modeling those boundaries. That's great. Anyone online?
Yes. Kim Matchich, kids love to help me with little projects, deliveries. They can do it only after they have completed schoolwork that they have been putting off. Rachel McLeod. In the real world, our parents don't allow children to clean or permit detention. That would have been something from the past. Katie Coker.
That was for last conversation, probably.
Referring students and families to mental health services in the community, inviting them into our schools and coordinating with those professionals in the schools.
Good.
Rachel Brader, we have some of our students who struggle with specials. Our PE teacher and music teacher push into the classrooms or pull those students out during their intervention time to work with those students individually and build relationships.
Wow, really cool. Awesome. See, again, we're already doing so much of this, right? We're already thinking about how we can provide support. All right, let's go to our last one. Expanding possibilities. How are we helping these kiddos stretch out to the community of our classrooms, out to the community of the school, or out to the community at large? How are we connecting them with community folks or other teachers or clubs, right, that they might be interested in? How are we exposing them to new ideas and new experiences? And how are we inspiring them to see that there may be possibilities for them that reflect their interests or reflect things that they get excited about? How are we already doing this? Give you a couple minutes on this. All right, let's share out. What are we doing to already expand possibilities? Yes?
Okay, so I have three. One is in our 7th grade girls mentoring group. We talk about the skill sets that they have and like what careers might be good for that.
Yeah.
And that they're interested in. Another one is field trips. And we actually got a sponsor that just paid for 8 students full field trips so that they could go somewhere outside of Alliance, Ohio.
Awesome.
Or like even out of Stark County, which is huge for so many families in need who they might never get out of their own town.
Yeah, excellent.
And then lastly is getting community members either involved in schools or getting kids or families involved in them outside of schools. So we have pastors who help and they maybe mentor in one of our groups, or they just show up and they're there talking with the kids. And then other times we'll have kids or families who they might need more support, and we have a pastor who's like, I'm willing to meet with them if they're willing to meet with us. And
Yeah.
so that's just really
That's
cool.
great. Awesome. Thank you. What else we got? Yes.
Well, our high school is working with Lori Moline of Mentor Stark, and she's actually brought Opportunity Club in, which means she's bringing professionals in and hooking students directly up with professionals that are already vetted and trained. And we have a huge involvement of our Alumni Association. I guess they've really pushed them to come back in and mentor and offer opportunities to our students in the high school. It's very active.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. What else we got? Yes.
My office is right next door to the Conquest.
Okay.
Professionals, so when she has a new kiddo in there, or she's working with a new kiddo, when on her way out, she stops and introduces them to me.
Okay.
And, if you ever need anything like, she
Yeah.
goes into this spiel, you need to come and see Mrs. Lambo.
That's
Or
great.
let me know and we'll come and see Mrs. Lambo together.
Yeah, making that connection every time. That's awesome. Yes.
At our school, we have the Legacy Project.
Oh,
and
yeah.
This is our first year, and it's working out really, really well. And we also have FCA
Mm-hmm.
that comes in on different days and speaks to the kids that go for lunch.
Wow, that's great. Awesome. How about online?
Online, Kim Moore, community outreach, connecting parents to programs, supports, and relationships, expanding our knowledge through trainings such as TANF Town, Roundtable, and meetings. Marcy McKendry, our 5th grade leadership group is working with a community nonprofit to do a community cleanup day. We try to find ways through things school-wide to let students feel they have a positive impact. School supply collections, canned food drives, letters to folks in nursing homes. Addie Kleinhens, at one of our family involvement nights, we invited organizations and clubs from Perry High School to introduce themselves to our elementary kiddos. It is called Perry Possibilities. Kim from Perry, I preach to students about the importance of putting themselves in other students' shoes and reach out to help them in need. Get out of your comfort zone. They in turn may feel more confident about themselves while helping others. Michelle Gump, we have a career connections class where they can explore careers. Danita Berry, Girls on the Run, and they also have a legacy program. And also Michelle, our art students took a field trip to learn from a community artist. Teresa Barbado, we have 17 members who connect with 35 students during captain's table while we teach them about the developmental assets.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. So many good things that we're already doing in schools. So to me, this activity, right, could be something that you introduce to other staff members at this school, right? Let's get as robust of a list as possible of things we're already doing that fill in each of these categories. And the reason why I want you to create as big of a list as possible is because I think that it will help. I don't think that, I know it will. I know it will help as we're beginning to look at intentionally targeting students to build these relationships. So remember I said we were gonna pull it all together, right? We're gonna look at all those lists together again. And so they weren't gonna throw them in the trash can for that reason. So I'm gonna put this one back up. What I want you to do now is looking at your list. I actually want you to think of a child, a real child that you know that could use a stronger relationship in the building. Someone who may not really be connected with any real adults yet, or maybe an adult other than you. Okay, how could we, or let's find that child, right? So everyone kind of got a child in their head they can think of, they can use. Now, using your list that you've already made, I actually want you to circle the things that that child is experiencing. So, is someone saying hello to him and saying his name when they walk in the building? Is he getting a classroom job or a leadership opportunity? Is someone coming in and holding him accountable through challenging growth? Is maybe he getting those check-in, check-outs as a way of keeping him on track? Is he a part of that Perry Possibilities program, right? So circle the things on your list that specific child is either has, well, I would say that you think that he's actually getting, right? Sure, he's got access to it, but like, is he actually getting it? Go ahead and do that. Go through your list and just circle for that one student. Okay, so I want to ask you guys, I guess just what was it like for you to kind of think about this from an individual child's perspective? Kind of pulling it through all the programs and the things that we're already doing. Were there any surprises or any questions that came up or comments that you think of when pulling just one child through this?
It's hard for me because the kids I think of are the ones that are getting things. So for me to think of somebody that like
Isn't already getting this extra support.
all the kids I think of, I see in the office or I see in the hallway or
Sure.
I have to talk to 4 times a day.
Yeah, like I said, when you look at the spectrum of kids who have this stuff, it tends to be the kids at the very top and then the kids who struggle, right? Because these supports are getting put in place. Anyone have any thoughts? Yeah.
I have a little boy that sits across from me at lunch, and I'm not working with him, I'm working with the one beside me. But I have learned a ton about the one across the bench, and he is 100% that one in the middle. And he's sad.
Yeah.
He's sad because his mom is a traveling nurse, and she's hardly ever home, and he has to stay with stepdad all the time. But he's just a good little boy, and doesn't get in any trouble. But I don't think he gets hardly anything past like the high in the morning. I mean, he's gonna get like the normal things that every kid gets, like we have like, I think we have like Duke Pride tickets or something, and they don't get check marks or whatever, but he is definitely missing out.
Yeah. Yes.
To go along with what she said, when I thought of the person, and I tried to think of somebody that I don't see on a regular basis, she's getting a lot of the express care, but then everything else is just kind of like, oh, so you're getting that.
I find that to be true across the board, kind of, that the higher you get up the list, the less kids are getting it. And I also think, though, sometimes when especially with our kiddos who are struggling and who are on behavior plans and that much, that they actually tend to really miss out on share power and leadership opportunities. And those things are actually revoked from them. And so, like, there are some trends that pull up when you start looking at this stuff. Yeah.
The child who I'm thinking of is very near and dear to my heart, and he's 10, and he is on a behavior plan, and share power is what I really see lacking for him, and he feels like he cannot compete with the other children who are not on a behavior plan for like any sort of citizenship or any type of recognition like that. He feels like he's never going to get that, and so actually that was one of my aha moments for today. He needs to have some leadership opportunities, because then he'll have the opportunity to believe about himself that he is a leader. And also, I think it's critical to always separate the behavior from the person, so that he knows, you had a red, like from zones of regulation. I could get a zones of regulation tattoo. I love it so much. Seriously.
Yeah.
You had a red day, but you're really green.
Yeah.
A really green, ready to learn person.
Yeah.
And so I think, but share power, like what you said, I was like, yes, I wanted to stand up, and I totally agree.
Yeah, it comes up a lot with kiddos who struggle because we take power from them. And leadership opportunities. And it's interesting you say like separate behavior from the person, right? I've always said like, oh my goodness, I don't know that Kay would like me as much if she knew all of my red behavior, right? No, she would. She would still love me. She would still love me. But you know how it goes. Like if your boss knew all of your red stuff, like, oh, we all got red stuff.
Yeah,
We all got red days, right? Good, yeah.
And the student who I'm thinking of, he has the opportunity to be in Lego Club after school. And this is his first after school activity where he's independent, and he's being successful with that. So
awesome.
Yeah, so it's been really positive.
Good. Anybody online sharing anything about the feelings of connecting one kid to this?
I just asked them if anyone would like to share with you and open up their mic. So if somebody opens up their mic,
You'll let me know.
we'll let them know, yes.
Okay. So what I like about this, remember I said that it's this contentious relationship. We already are building relationships, and we already have these really established systems of doing this work. It's not about building whole new programs or doing whole new things, but we're doing this work with the same kids. So how can we be more intentional about providing these opportunities for kids who need them, who may not be connecting in the ways that other kids are connecting? And this is how we begin that intentional move, because I can start making a plan and say, okay, so they're not experiencing this challenged growth, right? Maybe they're not getting an F in math, right? Maybe they're getting a B in math, but they could still have an opportunity to feel challenged in that growth. And how could we help them build that? We have this whole list of things we're already doing that work. So which ones could we engage that child with, right? It's not about creating new systems. It's about targeting it to students who need it. And the last thing I'm going to talk about before I quickly end on talking about us is that when we do this work, we actually, if we have one student that you've targeted and you've pulled them through that developmental relationship and which pieces and parts could be opportunities for us, you actually can also then extend this conversation one more space of what ways can we look at their contextual and environmental considerations, their relationships, and their just personal attributes in ways that might make it challenging or set up barriers to building this stronger relationship, or what way, oh, I did that the wrong way, barriers or opportunities and ways that we can build strengths. So, you mentioned that he was able to join the Legos club after school, right? If I have to ride the bus home from school, that's going to be a contextual barrier for involving me in an after-school activity, right? You mentioned that stepmom is working a lot for that student. That serves as a possible relationship barrier for building strong relationships, right? Or building some of these components of engaging family and et cetera, et cetera. But then what are ways that there might be things going on that help us build strengths? So maybe you said he's got stepdad, so let's engage stepdad. Or maybe he's got a relationship with another teacher, or me as the FSS. That's a relationship that can serve as an opportunity, right? What types of, maybe he's a really excited, positive, funny kid. So maybe that's an opportunity, personal qualities, for maybe engaging him in drama or theater, right? If he's an outgoing, engaging, funny kid. So thinking about this helps us start to, again, do that purposeful work of building these 5 components. We look at barriers, we look at opportunities, and really think about how this individual child can get better connected. And so like I said, I as a general education teacher, I don't need to go into this kind of extreme relationship with every kid that comes in. But if I did this with 3 kids this school year, that would be huge. That would be an opportunity to make real connections with kids. And I could do this with 3 kids. I could do this. So think about how we could talk to staff members, administrators, other support staff, and introduce them to this idea of developmental relationships, because it's not another thing. It's something we're already doing. It's just about targeting the right kids and getting them to the spot where they have an adult where they feel this close to them. This is going to benefit us in a bazillion ways, that I know you guys could rattle off a bunch of ways that these strong personal relationships with an adult, what it can help with that child, not just at school, but outside of school and for their future. It's worth it. It's super fun work, right? This isn't hard work to do. It's fun work. It takes time, but it gives us that opportunity to really connect with kids. All right. We're going to switch gears. for 5 minutes. Oh my God, I only have 5 minutes. You guys participated so well. I don't always anticipate having really great participation. You guys are great. But I did, as we're coming to the end of the year, I did want to, well, end of the year is relative. But we're coming into a pretty high stress space, right? Spring is high stress space in schools. And I actually just want to do one quick little activity with you to remember your self-care, okay? And so what I actually want you to do is I want you to take a minute and I want you to think of, I want you to just write down all of the things, maybe not all of them, we don't have time for all that, but I want you to think of some of the top things that are gonna stress you out this spring. Right, top things. So they can be work related, yes, stress you out. So, you know, I'm gonna be stressed by teachers because they're doing testing right about now, right? I'm gonna be stressed because it's end of the school year and trying to make sure that families have, you know, are signed up for, you know, free lunches over the summer or whatever else that is that you guys are doing. That might be a stressor. Think of a couple of things that are high stressors for you for the end of the year. All right, who wants to share out one? Yes.
No offense, Kay.
This is judgment-free zone, right?
Judgment-free zone.
Judgment-free.
I love you, Kay.
Yeah.
We have to finish up our spreadsheets.
Good, yes.
Man.
Yep, winding down those data spreadsheets.
And I don't care how much you've kept up with it, it's still a stressor.
Still a beast.
Yeah, it's a beast.
Good,
Yes.
good. What else? What else we got?
Scheduling.
Ooh, scheduling, yes, good one. You had one.
Worrying about the families through summer
Mm-hmm.
when we're not here.
Good, yeah, worrying about those summer, or the families over summer, good. One more?
And Margaret should worry about getting a new job.
Who's getting a new job?
Oh, you? Chrissy, that was hurtful.
Online?
Online, Kids of Barbados, helping the highest need students transition to new placements.
Good.
Rachel, typically abused, neglected referral reports rise for me from March to the end of the year. And then Luann, testing and scheduling. Christopher, scheduling, graduation pathways. Chelsea, parent requesting 504s and IEP services.
Good.
So that's from our online folks.
Good. All right, so these are stressors that are easy to think of because they happen every year, right? Most of these stressors happen every single year, and I find that every single year we're surprised at how stressed we are about them, right? We're like, oh man, I'm having such a stressful month, even though we knew it was coming for the last year. So this is what I want you to think about. I want you to take one of those stressors, right? And this is the last thing we're doing. I want you to take one of those stressors, one thing, and I want you to think of at least one for each side of this, but one thing that you can do proactively that can help you prepare for this thing, right? So if I'm stressed about the CARE Team data sheets, right, I am going to proactively pick a day that I'm gonna do this, right? That's gonna alleviate some stress. I'm going to proactively order a tray of cookies for that day. I am going to, right? I am going to make sure that before I even open the spreadsheet, I'm going to do a 10-minute meditation, and I'm going to take some big, deep breaths, right? Those are proactive coping strategies. I know this thing is going to happen, so what can I do to prepare for it? And then I want you to think of reactive coping, right? So let's say I'm in the middle of filling out the Excel sheet and my computer crashes. What am I gonna do?
Right.
Okay, what could I be prepared to do? Right? If I have a list of things, my computer crashes, I take a deep breath and I walk around the gym before I try and mess with it. Right? So then when it happens, right, that's half proactive, but it's planning that reactive. Right? What I can do when stuff messes up so that it crashes and I'm like, I got a plan for this. All right, I'm gonna go walk around. And then I'm gonna come back to the computer, right? So I want you to think of a couple of proactive and reactive strategies for at least one stressor. And then when you're at home, you can do the rest of them. But this is a wonderful strategy to start helping you think about those stressors you already know are gonna come. And I'm not gonna give you any more time to do that. Because I just wanna put that on. I know that this year is gonna be hard. I know that you guys are doing just an amazing job creating relationships with families. Like I said, Stark County is just paramount, and I just so appreciate the work that you guys do every day. Please take some time to think about yourself. Please take the extra time to really look at this reactive, proactive. I just wanna be done for those folks at home, but I don't think you have to I don't think the people with the vacuums are coming, so I think you can just hang here and keep filling out those proactive and reactive strategies. Guys, thank you so much for hanging. I'm gonna hang if you have questions, but otherwise I'm all done, Kay. I don't know if you had anything else.
Thank you. So after 2 years of not having any in-person meetings, we get Missy McClain from Akron Children's. She is an absolute, I'm in year 11 or 12, or I've lost count, but Missy has been such a great partner to us with everything we're doing. And she does shout across the state what we're doing in Stark County. In fact, we presented at one conference in Columbus, and I recall that the presenters told us we didn't need anything, so we didn't bring anything, and then he goes, "Where's your PowerPoint?" So we were able, that was in Columbus.
I do remember that.
Yes, I do. We didn't have anything. Everybody else has these beautiful, which we have beautiful presentations. We just got up and dazzled them. We just talked to them. That's just the way it needs to be. So as we're thinking about this, and when we were talking to Missy and planning this meeting, what's really interesting is that this conversation is under your social emotional growth. There's that little orange area, and it is under one caring adult. This whole conversation today came from looking at spreadsheets and looking at how do we do this one caring adult? Because as we're watching the numbers, the number of students that you are helping and families, it is growing exponentially every year. So how can we help you do what you're doing and streamline it? How can you feel more confident? The more confident you feel in what you're doing, and to have this skill set just in your repertoire is what you need. We wish that we could give you a list of here's your tier 2 interventions and here's your tier 3 interventions, and we can, but every child and every family is different. And so how can you take these 5 areas? And I just love the fact that Search Institute went from 40, because we always supported the 40 developmental assets, to just this. Because sometimes when you have too much, you shut down, and just to this. So I will make sure that I send the link out to everybody. We recorded the meeting. And so we'll make sure that we get that recorded link out to you. Sometimes it's nice even to use it as a podcast and just to listen again and to listen again, just so in the back of your mind, you just become more comfortable with these particular areas.
And the Search Institute is linked on my Live Binder, and they have a ton of their research around these 5 things and a ton of activities, things that you can give to families to help build these at home. They have all kinds of stuff on this developmental relationships, individual activities, things you can do. That's all on the Live Binder linked under Search Institute.
And I even asked her if they have posters, and they said yes, because it'd be kind of cool just to have just a little poster where you're starting to think about that. So we so appreciate you. And going back to the little stressors with your spreadsheets, what I can tell you for next year is that we've been working with Eric Kurtz, and we've removed probably about 20 columns on your spreadsheet for next year. It was getting out of control. It just was getting out of control. So we're going back to a simpler life. And if you need to add more complexities to your care team work, such as if your care team also is your attendance intervention team and you're following House Bill 410, then we're going to have some places where you can do work in tabs at the bottom instead of having all the work across the top. If your CARE team is going to also become your Tier 2 PBIS team, then we've built in tabs at the bottom where you can still have all of your work in one place. Over the last 5 years, it is torturous to change one thing on your CARE team spreadsheet. And, my assistants will attest to it. I had to apply, I worked 20 extra days over the summer just to make the changes that we had for this year. And then when we made them, I didn't like them. So then I was really upset with myself. But anyways, so we're trying to make your life as easy as possible as it becomes more complex. Your data tells you a story. And I think we're finally turning a key, we're finally turning with the data piece. So your data tells the story of what you're doing. And that's really important to people that are making decisions around the work you're doing. Do you have enough help? Do we need another FSS? Do we need to hire a school counselor? So we have to be able to show through data that we have these strengths, but we also have these gaps. And so I'm a nerd that just loves data. That's why I'm sorry that you're the recipient of this. But I also believe, and we honored Maria Higgy. Maria Higgy is the CEO of United Way. She's retiring at the end of this month. And those of you that are family support specialists and those of you from Plain Local, internally, you have community liaisons, or what community, what
I'm a community
liaison. So Plain Local internally has hired their family support specialists or community liaison. Canton City internally has hired their community school workers. Everyone else that United Way touches, we've hired the FSS program. We were just talking in 2013, United Way gave us $150,000 and said, build this. This was a piece that was missing. School-based mental health and your family support are the cornerstones of your CARE teams because they allow us to find the depth of what's going on. As educators and building administrators, we never had time. The student came in, we talked about them and disciplined them, they went out, the student comes in, we discipline them, they go out. The educators don't have the time to get to the root cause of what's going on. Fast forward from 2013, when I was by myself, hanging out with Missy McClain. You fast forward now that I have 3 assistants that are helping, and we have taken a $150,000 program, and it is a $1.2 million program. That is how important our work on CARE teams is. That is how important it is. And the reason we've gone from 150,000 to 1.2 million is all of us, the 4 of us, we go back to the districts and say, look at your data. Look what your CARE teams are doing. We need another family support specialist. We need more school-based mental health. We need. And so we just gently nudge, and they love us, and so sometimes they're able to help. So we so appreciate you, and if you do have any trouble with your data, I'm always available. You can email me. You can email me and hang out with me for a little bit. So some people love it and some don't. But
I'm a convert. I'm a data convert.
Yeah.
I used to hate it, now I love it.
yeah. So it does tell a story.
Data convert.
We do a lot with it. Hey, you're more than, well, we have the room till 10 o'clock. Oh, I'm sorry. And those are for our family support specialists that are here for data day. You're meeting at 10 a.m. in room 229. I just love it. Huh?
Were we supposed to be doing
You can do it. Yeah. She's at the court. Don't worry about it. Well, if you want to whine a little bit about your data, then talk to this one from the court who has, in addition to the data spreadsheet, they have a lot of other things they're tracking. So yeah. Any parting comments or thoughts while we have little Miss Missy McClain here for anybody?
Missy, you rock. You rock, and you are such an advocate for young people who turn into adults, who then in turn love on young people. So thank you for just being who you are. You are amazing. Thank you. Appreciate your passion. That means a lot from you because you're like the most genuine person I know.
Yes. Yes.
You're doing amazing work.
Any questions? Yes, please.
With the way the pandemic has affected teachers and the teaching occupation right now, how has that trickled down, kind of?
That's a fun question. It trickles. No, it's been a really incredibly stressful year. I think about, it's interesting because there's a lot of things going on, increased need, also reduced supports. So we have students who have higher needs and then we have less support systems for them. So maybe I used to be able to go talk to my 4th grade teacher, but now I'm not allowed in that hallway anymore because of COVID kind of stuff and tracing and all of that. So I think that the students are in an uncomfortable space, but also then I think as educators, from what I've heard, it seems like a really big contributor to some really high stress is one of those things of like unmet expectations, where a lot of us came into the school year of 21-22 like, oh my gosh, we're finally back in person, it's gonna be so great, we're gonna be like, everything's gonna be great, and then it wasn't. And so I don't think that everyone was quite emotionally prepared for how difficult the year was, and so then that became like a chasm of disappointment and frustration. So I think that it was a little bit of that increased need, lower supports, and then unmet expectations on the adults' part that contribute to some of the negative feelings. And I think that that kind of negative feeling is contagious. And so when I'm in a building where there's a lot of very vocal people that are very negative, then it feels like I'm getting drugged down into that conversation. And it feels less and less supportive. And I just think that there's going to be, I've been saying for years, long before COVID, I've been saying that, we are going to come to a point where we have a mass exodus of teachers. And I don't know what we're gonna do in that moment. I think we already are experiencing that. And I think that how we can systemically move through that, it's gonna take a while. I think there's some big changes that need to be made when everything in the world has changed except education. It's hard. Yeah. Dr. D, you guys on?
Yeah, I think because this has been, I have such mixed feelings both ways about it, because I think that to keep teachers, we need to treat teachers like the professionals they are, and we need to pour as much support, education, and compassion and care into them as we do these kids. Because they are that front line, and we don't do that. Right now, they're expected to do more with less. And that's been my experience in the schools with teachers. And that's what they're saying, help us. They don't want to not help the kids, but they need help too and support, because they're taking care of all of our children and then having to go home and do another role like all the rest of us, be a parent and do whatever. So I think part of that to prevent a mass exodus is, and it was actually brought up in by a business person at Altman, and it was one of the most profound things. It was a learning tool for me. Was a nurse said to me, in their leadership meeting, we have done so much to promote getting additional help. We give this bonus and that bonus. What are we doing for those of us that have stayed the course? What are we doing to keep those of us that are in place? And I think teachers feel the same way. What are we doing for all of us? This is hard work. It's people work.
And I think too, going along with that, I think that looking at it from kind of the opposite end of that support for the teachers that are here, or even new teachers, is that I think, and like I said, it's big systemic changes that need to happen. That how do we have actual in-service teachers at the table when we're having conversations about what changes need to be made to education overall. Because I can give people bonuses all day long, but if the expectations on student learning and academic timeframes and all of the rigor and standards that are not evidence-based and we just anecdotally as teachers know don't work. So until that stuff is I'm thinking of edited, but that's not the word I want to say, adjusted to reflect more appropriately on what in-service teachers know works, what they know helps children succeed, both academically and personally. That is when we can start having happier teachers. Because, you know, you can give me bonuses all day long, but if it's still a shitty job, it's a shitty job. So how do we give teachers voice and vote on some of those really systemic issues? And there are lots of schools that are beginning this work. And, you know, I always feel like it's like the Rebel Alliance in Star Wars, you know? Where it's like, yeah, you see the resistance schools where they're saying, okay, first 3 weeks of school, we're not even talking about academics.
Yep.
You know, and it's like, that's a Rebel Alliance initiative, right? That I know it says on the paper you're gonna do 90 minutes here, but you're actually gonna do 83 minutes, and then you're gonna do 7 minutes of this, right? That how are we, and I know that it sucks that it has to be as like, are we still recording? I couldn't. But it sucks that we have to do this as like rebels, you know, that we have to do this, but the thing is that people in education are the people who know what is good for kids.
And sometimes you have to be the rebel to do that. Sometimes you have to bring these people in education to the table with the decision makers to be part of the solution, not the decision made for them and say this works best. You don't know, you've never been where I'm at.
Exactly.
So when you start including all of us, FSSs who are right there in these kids' homes, you know, your educators, your counselors, at the table where we're making, that's when systems changes will be made.
Yeah, and I think that it's hard though, because I know that some of us are type A and, you know, like, what the heck's the rules? And we don't want to do that. And I support that, I get that, some of us are like that. So how do we support those folks who maybe are less apt to kind of make those changes in their classroom? How do we extra support those folks while advocating and navigating for the teachers who are a part of that Rebel Alliance, right?
Yep.
So that's a conversation that could take another 5, 6, 7 days, right? Yeah, you're right.
I'm finding more and more teachers need someone to really talk to. They're coming into my office and almost, I'm FSSing for the teachers. They need someone to just hear them, not sit around and bitch, but
they're
you know,
not
like,
complaining.
yeah, they're like, I am really at a loss, or I'm really stuck. And
if you
I
think
have
of-
some intervention stuff, I'm like, can I send you this? And they're like, oh yeah, you know, just.
And if you think
sharing
of all of
resources.
since COVID, all of the implications on things like staff meetings and trainings and all of that in-person, Kay and I were talking about that earlier when you guys were coming in and all that collegial conversation that you're having, right? That if I'm not having staff meetings anymore, many schools are not having in-person staff meetings. And so if I'm not having that anymore, then I am missing out on those professional conversations, that professional support that's in person that feels, you know, supportive. And so then I am seeking out those relationships because that's what we need. We need each other in this work. And so looking at how we can better connect in that way is important. Same thing with families. I mean, we're not doing the same standard, you know, things that we used to do, choir concerts and, you know, dances and you know, parent-teacher nights in the same way that we used to. And so they're missing out on that community connection as well.
Well, I think part of the frustration came too is during COVID, we went back to the 50s and 60s family style and education style. We saw what we could do without, and kids were fine, parents were fine, stress was lower. And then we come back to, we're building back up. So to your point, yeah, some things it's like, do we really need that? Because there was so much more relational time when we didn't have all this tedious stuff because of COVID. And now we're back to, okay, state standard, you know.
Which I've been talking about for a long time.
I
All right, I'll do one more and then if you guys want to stay and hang, you can, but.
Well, I think like teachers are beyond burnt out, like I hear it a lot from them, and it's like they don't even have a planning period anymore because there's such a lack of subs. They have no break in their day. Like they quickly eat lunch and then they have to go cover another class. Like they're expected to not take a single day off because there's just no coverage. And then then they're expected to do more at home. So it's just like this constant thing of expectations, and they're just completely burnt out with like nowhere to go with it.
One, I think that and then it's hard when we have superficial self-care initiatives, right? Like, here's some granola bars during testing, you know? And I always talk about, like, the real self-care is, does everyone get a potty break? More than one a day, right? That's gonna go a lot further than granola bars. And so how can we, I talk about, there's a school in Columbus that does a potty program where they've got teachers signed up where they give other teachers 2-minute pee breaks. It's pretty cool. It's set up like a bracket, like it's visually represented in their teacher's lounge. And so I volunteer 4 minutes of my planning period. Now that was when we had planning periods, right? I dedicate 4 to 5 minutes of my planning period, and then every day I go and relieve. I go, give Miss Johnson 2 minutes, and then I go down the hall and I give Miss Smith 2 minutes. Every day, the same 2 teachers. And then the promises of that is that then I get 2 other 2-minute pee breaks outside of my planning period. So that's how I earn that time back. Huge, right? But that's a staff-initiated thing that we're working together. That is a huge self-care thing. If I could get 3 pee breaks a day, what are you talking about, right? It goes a long way.
Then you wouldn't have to wear your Depends.
I wouldn't. I'd save money.
The
That
other
would be my
issue
bonus.
is Tier 3 behavior supports.
Applies for staff.
It's what it does to your morale when you know you're not going to get Tier 3 behavior support. So the thing that you love and decided you'll go into this and make half of what you could doing something else, you don't get to do that. And it's not because, like for me, I work in mental health, I work with people who are addicted, and I work with the homeless. Like, I have lots of compassion, but there is a such thing as a Tier 3 student in behavior. And when I'm expected to do my teaching job, I can't do both of those things. I can with a Tier 2 student, and a whole lot of them. But there's a lot of teachers feel that way.
Well, and I think that the same is true, and I work on the other end at the university level. How are we at a pre-service level having conversations about implementing really strong Tier 1 and Tier 2 supports so that I, as a general education teacher, am not treating a Tier 1 child in a Tier 3 situation as a Tier 3 child. Because then that actually limits the ability, I'm speaking on the opposite end, that limits the ability of those of you who are working with Tier 3 students, because now I can't give the appropriate time to the Tier 3 students to help them be most successful in the classroom because I'm working with Tier 1 students in a Tier 3 situation. And so there's a lot to this. It's a very complex issue, but I appreciate you bringing it up. Like I said, it trickles. COVID has impacted pretty much every part of everyone's life. But I'm glad to be in person today. That is a first step towards a new future, not back to normal, new future.
And I think too, if you want longevity in this profession, you just have to have a balance in your life. You have to. I mean, it's a hard profession.
It is.
You just have to have that balance in school and outside of school. So
It's a marathon.
it is a marathon.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks, Kay.
Yes.